How's it going, guys? Welcome to today's video. I'm pretty excited to bring this one to you because we're finally getting the engine put back into the 944. I talked to the previous owner a little bit because I just didn't have that much information about this car, and it turns out that this engine hasn't been in that car for like 7 or 8 years. This poor car is well deserving of having its engine put back in. So we have a few logistical things to go over, and the car's not going to start today because I still need some things for the fuel system, and I want to reset the timing too because the first time I didn't have the locking tool that I needed, so I would hate to put all this work into this engine and then have it just immediately blow up. So we have some stuff that we got to do. The car's not going to start just yet, but I got to the point where I couldn't continue further without putting the engine in, so we're going to get it done today. Everyone called me crazy for building my little pulley contraption, but the thing is, when it's raining and you can't get a grip on the concrete because you're trying to push the car, the pulley system, yep, saves the day. Alright, so because this car is a Porsche and it's going to fight back on literally everything you do, we have a little bit of preparation that we need to do before we can get the engine in there. So, this car from the factory has this huge sump on the oil pan, and it like sticks out on the side, which is really interesting, but that's just to make sure that you never get oil starvation if you're like going around corners or something like that. So Porsche, their mentality is build the best performing car, and that's amazing. Like, there's a reason why Porsche is the way that it is, but because of that, they can be kind of quirky to work on. So we can't just drop the engine right in because that oil pan is so large and this bell housing sticks out so far that to get that little input shaft from the torque tube to spline into our bell housing, we need to drop this cross member so that way we have space for that oil pan. So I'm going to go ahead and jack up the car and start kind of undoing a few bits of the suspension. I believe we need to undo the tie rods, the ball joints, and then there should be just a couple bolts on each side to lower that cross member down. And we only need to drop it down like 5 or 6 inches, but then once we get the engine roughly in place, then we'll raise it back up. So it's going to be a bit of a balancing game trying to manage this engine and all of those components, but we should be able to get it done. I swear, anytime I'm trying to make a video, it is just constant freaking... Alright, so after taking a look at the lower suspension, I think there's a couple ways that I could do this. I don't really want to disconnect the tie rod and the ball joints if I can because I have the separator tool, but if I damage one of these, it's going to be a while before I can get a part in. So I think what I'm actually going to do is disconnect the shock right here. So I'll disconnect this and then I will disconnect the lower control arm over here. You can kind of see my finger in the corner, but that connects to the chassis, but then the front mount for the lower control arm connects to the cross member itself. So it's a little bit confusing. You guys will see what I mean in a second, but I think the easiest way to just lower this a few inches is going to just be to disconnect the shock and then lower the whole cross member with the tie rods and the ball joints still attached. I hope that works. Logically, I think it will, but if not, I can always just disconnect more things. All right, let's see how this goes. Well, that's on there pretty tight.
20 minutes later.
Alright guys, so I tried for a while to get that lower shock bolt undone, and I wasn't able to get it undone, and I have this idea. It's becoming a little bit more in depth than I would like, but I still think that it's going to be easier than doing the tie rod and the ball joint, because if I break one of those pieces, it's game over. Like, the car is going to be bricked. Even though it's already bricked, it's just like, I don't want to roll it around with one of the tie rods disconnected. It's just a good way to damage something. So what I'm going to do is, instead of disconnecting the shock from the bottom, I'm going to disconnect them from the top, like from from the towers. So that way when I lower the cross member, like all the suspension and everything is gonna lower down. It only has to lower about 6 inches. And so it should be okay. I'm a little bit worried that some of the weight is gonna make it kind of like roll back, but I'm gonna lower it down super slow, and I'm gonna have my roommates help too. I'm gonna have each of them like hold one side to make sure it doesn't just flip back immediately, because the lower control arm kind of extends back. So you guys will see when we get there, but it's just gonna make my life a lot easier, and I can worry about those stuck bolts when I upgrade the suspension and redo some of the stuff with the wheels. So I just need to get this engine in the engine bay. I think those top bolts are gonna be a lot easier to loosen than the bottom ones. I mean, I could be wrong. What if those are stuck too? Every single bolt on here is just stuck, but I think that's gonna be the way to go. It's not very traditional. Everybody that owns a 944 is gonna be like, you should have just done the ball joints, but I can't do that. I have the ball joint tool, but I'm not gonna break a ball joint right now. Bro, it was sunny like 2 minutes ago. Now it's pouring. All right, so we're gonna quickly climb up under the car, and I'm gonna show you guys all the bolts that we need to loosen before we drop the cross member down. Okay, so this is the lower control arm. It has 2 bolts that hold it up with this bracket right here, and then it connects to our cross member. So since that's connected to the cross member, we have to disconnect it from the chassis right here, and then we have to disconnect these 2 bolts that hold the cross member to the chassis. There's one right here that you guys can't see, sorry. And then there's another one kind of on the other side. So after we disconnect those 4 bolts, this whole cross member will drop down. And when it does, I'm gonna put a jack stand right here, and then I'm gonna put the jack itself right in the center and lower it down like 1 inch at a time, because I'm not about to drop all of my front suspension just because of one mistake. All right, we got the boys. So they're gonna hold the struts in place, or the shocks, sorry. Wait, are the shocks on the back? Yeah, struts are on the front, shocks on the back.
I don't even know there's a difference.
I don't know there's a difference.
They're gonna hold the suspension. And I'm gonna unbolt the last 2 bolts that are holding up this cross member, and then it's gonna lower down, and they're just gonna make sure that it doesn't tip front to back, and it's gonna be good. Left. Okay. I'm gonna lower it slowly.
Oh my god.
What the hell was that? She's good. Alright, hold on.
They came out.
Yeah, that's good. You don't
I don't
say.
know what the fuck we're doing. I was just told to hold this.
Let me know if it starts getting tighter or anything.
We'll do.
Should be okay. I keep saying that. How we doing? Anything?
I'm good.
Mine's
Getting a little tighter.
Mine's on the
Oh.
ground.
Yours is on the ground.
Well,
Are you like
the
pushing
wheel,
it?
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is
The
too.
brake disc is on the ground.
Okay, looks like we're going with
Toe cables.
big yellow. Holy, sorry! Trying to get out of your way. Well, if you weren't on that damn phone so much.
Fucking screaming.
Hold the flashlight! Alright guys, the time has come. I don't think there's anything else. Cross member's been dropped. Everything is out of the way for the most part. So I'm gonna just put it in there. I'm sure it won't be that simple, but we're gonna give it a shot. Well, we need to go a little bit higher. And I'm worried that that's gonna hit that. So I think I'm gonna lower that down and put a towel over the roof so that way it doesn't mess up the paint. Of course this would happen to me. At least I noticed it, because I was about to just raise this thing up and just shove it over. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and lower that onto the car. Hopefully that gives us enough clearance room to at least get the oil pan over the cowl piece, whatever that is, the nose. And then maybe we can just like lower it down a bit and angle it. I don't know, we'll see.
12 o'clock midnight.
All right, guys, so I haven't picked up the camera in a while. I use that little SpongeBob transition that says 12 o'clock midnight, but it's not even a joke because it's literally midnight right now. I have just been having like all the little tiny issues that could possibly come up have been coming up. So let me just explain for a sec. The engine is almost in place. Like it's that far. So as you can see, the bell housing is mounted to the torque tube, but the engine is now off of the bell housing. When I tried installing it with the bell housing on the engine, I could not get the engine far enough forward to make sure that the spline had enough room to go into the bell housing. So it's kind of this whole mess, but I honestly don't even know how people do that with the bell housing, dropping it down to the top. Maybe I just didn't have it angled right. I tried it a few different ways and I just couldn't do it. So I took the bell housing off, I got it on there, and then I was having issues with the speed and reference sensor bracket. So there's like this little bracket that goes right here that goes over these two holes right there. And I couldn't get the thing off. I was trying to take it off and it was just stuck. Eventually, I finally got it off because I heated up one of the bolts, the bolt that went in that hole right there. I got it out, but holy crap, this thing is just so old. This thing was stuck in there ridiculously hard. So got that out, got that bracket off, and now it seems like things are lining up much nicer. I was worried that maybe the splines weren't going all the way in, but after we got it like most of the way and it was getting stuck, I realized that it was because of that bracket. So after we pulled it back out, I looked at the splines and it seemed like everything was lining up right. So that's a good thing because I was definitely worried about the torque tube being like old and crusty, but seems like it's gonna work. So I have no choice but to continue going tonight. It's midnight. I'm super tired. I've been up since like 6, but as you can see, I can't close the garage until I get this car back on its suspension and roll it out. I'm just gonna keep plugging away at this, and as soon as I get it mounted up to the bell housing, I'll update you guys. All right, so the engine is fully bolted up. I just tightened down the bell housing bolts and it's sitting in its like rough location. So now we need to raise the lower cross member back up. I do want to make a quick note. My steering shaft still isn't connected. You can see the little end for it right there. I don't have a bolt for the steering column, so I'm just gonna worry about that later. It's like freaking 2 o'clock in the morning right now. I know that I didn't hook it up, but that's just gonna be a problem for future me. And honestly, it's not that hard to just support the engine and then drop the cross member down, so I'm not that worried about it. I'll be able to get to it. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this motor mount back on the driver's side and then get everything put back together and go to sleep. Alright guys, so last night I finished getting the engine put in the car. I was up super late. I was up till like 4 or 5. You guys should have seen me. I was a basket case. I couldn't even record anymore. The memory card was full and the batteries were all dead. But I was able to record everything I needed. You guys saw me put the wheels back on, and after that I just lowered it down and rolled it back out. But we still have a long way to go on this, of course. Like, I'm not even going to try to start it today because there's just so much that the engine needs still. I need to get my injectors on, need to go and get spark plugs, wires, that sort of thing. I have an alternator for it. I don't know if it works, so I'm going to go and get that tested, and then I'm going to need to get a battery. So a lot of things to come with this, and before I do any of that, I'm still going to sandblast a few things because that motor mount is sandblasted and it looks super nice. And then this bracket just looks like absolute ass. So like, we got some work we need to do, but having it in here is a really big step in the right direction. So that's pretty much going to wrap up the content for today's video, but I just want to go ahead and give a quick thank you to the subscribers and viewers that keep coming back and watching all these videos. I know it's not about the Mustang. The Mustang is the main car on the channel, I guess, or it was for a while. and I haven't worked on it for a while because it just bugs me that I had this other car that's just sitting here. I know the videos about the Porsche don't get as many views, but I mean, I don't really care. Like, if you guys are only here for the Mustang, that's not really my problem. Like, I'm here to build cool stuff, and I have a lot in store for this car too, and if it means that my views are going to be down, then that's just the way that's going to go. But for those of you that come and watch all my videos, thank you so much. It really means the world. And a special thank you to my family for buying me this engine hoist for Christmas. They all pitched in and got this for me because I had the engine here for a while and I didn't have a hoist, so it's like there was no way for me to put it in the car even if I had it ready. I'm very grateful for all the support that I get, and this channel just keeps growing, and it really means the world to me that you guys want to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to do my best to keep bringing you this type of content. I got a lot of plans for this car and the Mustang. The next video is about the Mustang, so don't worry. The Mustang content isn't going away. I'm not selling the car, nothing like that. I'm not a Porsche snob now. I love both of these cars, and I'm trying to make it as interesting for you guys as possible. So thank you guys so much for the support. If you like this video, make sure you leave a like down below. Consider subscribing for more car content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out and dream big.